So I've gotten a few comments and DMs on Instagram asking about how I got Pineapple and Pumpkin to be so close and be great companions and yet still have that bond with me and my boyfriend. So I figured I'd make a video about how to introduce your new green cheek conure to your first green cheek conure, or how to introduce a new bird to your bird, because these steps could also work for other species as well. Just a disclaimer before we actually start, I think it's a wonderful idea for you to get another green cheek conure to bond with your first green cheek conure, but there is a chance that they might never get along, and that is something you have to be completely okay with. And if they don't get along, you're going to have two birds that are going to need your undivided attention. So please consider this before actually getting another bird. You also can't force two birds to like each other if they don't, just like how it is with humans. So if I don't like you, then I'm not going to like you, and if you don't like me, then you're not going to like me.
But I really do hope you do like me.
So now let's get into it. The first thing you want to do, and I'm sure you know this already, is that before you bring your new bird home, you want to make sure you already have a cage that is set up and ready to go for them, and that this cage should be set up in another room that is away from your first bird, because that is the room where you're going to quarantine your new bird for about a month. Quarantining your new bird will allow you to monitor them for any illnesses that could be passed on to your first bird. You also want to make sure you set up an appointment with your avian vet so that your new bird can get a full checkup, and so that your vet could rule out any illnesses that they may have. Also, make sure you are washing your hands thoroughly between bonding with your new bird and your first bird, because you really don't want to risk the chance of passing any illnesses. And during the quarantine phase, and this is really important, you're going to use this time to tame and bond with your new bird so that you can form a relationship with them. It'll also be a great time to introduce your new bird to other people that you live with so that you can socialize them right from the start. I also found that trick training is a really great way to bond with your new bird, and it's also a great time to incorporate the same routine that you have with your first bird with your new bird, and I'll let you know why in a couple minutes. Quarantining your new bird will allow them to get used to their environment, and both of your birds will also be able to hear each other from a distance and get used to each other's calls and presence. And after the quarantine phase is over and you know that your bird is free of any illnesses, you're going to start with really slow introductions. So the first thing you should do is move your new bird's cage into the room where your first bird's cage is, and place the cages next to each other, and then observe your bird's body language and behavior. So if your birds seem nervous or scared, you want to place the cages farther away from each other so that they can still see each other and still have their own space. And then you can work on slowly moving the cages closer together depending on how your birds react and their comfort levels, which is of course going to differ for every bird. Also, remember to take things slow, because you really don't want to stress out your birds and make this a negative experience for them. When you think you're ready and if you feel comfortable enough, you can then start to interact with your birds separately outside of the cage. Trick training and playing with toys is a really great way to bond with them outside of the cage, because it'll get their minds off of each other to focus on the yummy treats and attention that they are going to get. It's also really important to remember to take your first bird out first to play with and give them lots of praise and love, just so that they know that they're not getting replaced with this new bird. And you also want to make sure that whenever you take them out for individual playtime, the bird that is caged should be able to see the interaction that you have with the other bird, so that they know that, hey, this strange bird seems to be okay, and that they're not a threat, and will eventually realize that they are part of the flock. Also, don't forget to reward them with treats for good behavior. And previously I said to incorporate the same routine that you have with your first bird with your new bird, so that both birds will know and expect what will happen throughout the day, and so that they don't become too stressed with all the change, which will also make it easier for their first interaction and for them to bond with each other after. And when you think your birds are ready to meet for the first time, you want to make sure you have toys and treats available, and to take them to a neutral space so that there aren't any territory issues, because they tend to be a little bit more territorial over their cages. So when you're taking them to another room or to a neutral space, you want to make sure you always take out your first bird first and place them on a play gym, or even the dining table works. So you can place them a few feet apart and have them interact with their own set of toys, and also reward them with treats for good behavior. You could also trick train them, or have someone train one bird while you train the other, so that they can focus on getting treats and will associate being out together as a positive and fun experience. During this time, you also want to give them the opportunity to greet each other on their own. And of course, you never want to force the experience because they are going to greet each other on their own terms and when they feel ready. Also important that you observe their body language and always make sure to supervise them. When they're greeting each other for the first time, they might use their beaks to check each other out, but you do want to separate them if they show any signs of aggression. So this is something that you will be able to distinguish. If they do attack, you want to separate them immediately because if they are able to hurt each other really badly, then that could ruin the whole bonding experience altogether. And if you have another person to help you out with this process, then that is going to be really helpful. So if they do end up attacking each other, you want to separate them right away and then place them a few feet apart again and have them interact with their own toys. You could even go back to training them as well. And if they go towards each other again to attack, then you want to stop playtime altogether and put them back into their cages for a quick time out. You might want to take a step back and go back to individual playtime where they can still see each other and try to have them interact again the next day and repeat the process depending on their behavior and interactions. So after their first initial interaction, you want to continue giving them individual attention and having them out together and make sure to monitor their progress and watch their body language and behavior. And then you could eventually start doing everything with your birds together. And by everything, I mean showering together, eating together, playing together, and even training together. So when you are doing everything together, at the beginning, you want to start in a neutral setting and make sure that both of your birds have their own set of food bowls, water bowls, and toys that are placed a few feet apart, and you could gradually move them closer together depending on how they behave and react towards each other. They might even start taking turns eating from each other's food bowls, maybe showering in each other's water bowls, and playing with each other's toys. And when you feel that they are comfortable in each other's presence in a neutral setting, you can then start taking them out of their cages for playtime, and they might even start exploring each other's cages. If you've noticed, I never mentioned an exact timeline of when you should start introducing them to each other or when they will actually get along, because that is something that's going to differ for every bird because they are so unique and they have their own individual personalities. Now, a good way to gauge if they will ever get along is to really observe their body language throughout the whole process, because that will be the key indicator to tell if they actually like each other. So if every time they are out together and you see that their interactions are constantly the same and that there's no good change at all, like if they always attack each other right away when they're out together, even after a long while, then there's a good chance that they might never get along. But if there are slight changes with their behavior with every interaction that they have, like the time between if and when they actually attack each other is getting longer and longer, and if they are able to be out together and greet each other without attacking each other, then that is usually a really great sign. So you always want to make sure that you're taking things slow and observing their body language, because if they get into a really nasty fight, then that could really ruin the whole bonding experience and it could make or break their relationship. And observing their body language will also help you determine when to move on to the next step or even take a couple steps back. Also, trick training will help solidify your relationship with your first bird and help you build up the relationship that you have with your new bird. And training your birds together is also going to be a really fun and rewarding experience that they will both enjoy. You also don't want to force them to be in the same cage together and ultimately let them decide if they want to be housed together, because things could get ugly, and trust me, if they do want to be housed together, then they will let you know. Also, if you can, find out the gender of your new bird before bringing it home, because if both of your birds are different genders and they do end up getting along, then there is a chance that they might mate, and then you'll have to worry about having babies on your hands. If you're introducing different species, then you want to be extra careful, especially if there's a large size difference between them, because they could get hurt, and there may also be a higher chance of them not getting along because they are different species. And with anything you do with your birds, you want to make sure you are consistent and have a lot of patience, because they aren't going to get along right away. If you have any questions, make sure you leave them in the comment section down below, because I do answer every comment. Also, feel free to follow us on Instagram and DM me there, because I do try to get to every DM. Don't forget to like and share this video if you found it helpful, and also subscribe to our channel for more videos like this. And don't forget to hit that notification bell and select all notifications so you get notified every time we post a new video. And that's it. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.